So there is already a video up on the channel titled Premont Home Walkthrough, No Narration. And so that one was taken the week that we were cleaning out the house, preparing to sell it. It was in October of 2019. And so that one was more just to kind of, see what it was like. And, a lot of this, of course, is for myself because, I really did love this house. And it's a shame that we had to sell it, but that's the way things go sometimes, unfortunately. So I kind of just wanted to share little stories here and there as I'm doing the walkthrough. Like here, for example, I'll be doing little freeze frames like this to make it easier to talk, and so the video won't keep playing. But it's hard to tell with all the overgrowth, but the tops of the fence here are bent down because I used to jump over this. Sometimes for fun, sometimes to get back into the house. Living in a small town, it's easy to get into your house and to not worry about, locked doors. Or at least back then it was. Who knows what it's like now. So coming back here around the front now, there was the front door, the official front door that we never used. And you see the bags there of me cleaning out. So I'm going to keep moving around here. There used to be some trees that were lined up here. I remember specifically going with Dad to cut down one and chop it up. And then here's the actual gate where you would go in, and it's so funny, the little things I remember. You can hear it in the other video, but just the sound of that, when it opens, things like that stick in my mind. There you can see the kitchen window up to the left, and of course the back door. At some point in history, I remember this had like a green plastic awning or something. Oh yes, the old antenna up there, which who knows when the last time it actually worked. But anyway, there was a green plastic awning there. I remember it got old and broke, and so they never replaced it. But here I'm taking you to the other side of where I used to jump the fence. Of course, a lot of this overgrowth wasn't there back then, so it was easy to jump back. And so here was the way into my parents' bedroom. You could either go through there, or you could go through the bathroom window there, and a good old air conditioner. I still remember before we had a dryer that Mom would put clothes out here and actually hang them out to dry. And even when we did have a dryer, she still used it sometimes. There's some remnants of old, like picnic tables and things that we would sit out there and, visit with friends or whatever. And especially when Dad would barbecue, he used to bring the pit all the way back here into the tree. Later on, he used to just keep it in the garage. This tree I specifically remember climbing. That right there where they cut, I remember it was specifically because Grandpa Yonel hit his head on it, and then not too long after that they got somebody to come cut it. So if you look right here, you can actually still see some antlers there from one of Dad's many hunting adventures. I don't know if he retrieved that before they sold it or not, but he definitely had his fair share in his collection. But yeah, this tree was a lot of fun to climb. I mean, it's rare to have these type of old trees at houses anymore, with so many new houses being built. So yeah, it was some great memories. I didn't ever go too high, of course, but there was some great branches right above the one that got cut that were perfect for just, climbing far enough and having a little adventure. Hope I didn't disorient you too much with that jump cut, but basically this is at the very back of the backyard. I've never got a clear answer as to what this was. It seems like it was some sort of frame or foundation for either a house or a storage room. If you look there, it's kind of like a little, cement, very crude ramp going up. But it was just always, for me anyway, a neat place to go back here in the back. And so the reason I held my hand up during the filming was to tell you a story that I remember. So I was back here with my friend David Pena and I think his brother, and we were just digging back here. And I remember he caught my finger there, if you can see. But the first thing when I went and showed my dad, because, it was bleeding and everything, was he asked, did I cry? And I'm like, really? That's the first thing you want to ask me? But it's just funny, the random things you remember sometimes. And this was taken when I was 41, I think. And so that must have happened when I was, maybe a teenager almost. So you're talking over 25, 30 years that scar is still there. But yeah, I think, just backyards that are this big in general are just a rarity nowadays, or you're really going to pay a lot for them. And so it was nice. It was one of those things that even back then I realized it was nice to have. Oh yeah, this back gate going into the alley. And there, the water, good old water meter. And so now we're looking towards this storage building that was built, and I can't remember. This might have been built when it was either late teens or I'm not sure, but it was just a friend of ours who came and built it just because we needed more room for our stuff. As you can see there, it was already falling apart on the ramp up. That black thing right there is actually the remnants of an old karate punching bag we had. And so who knows what happened. It looks like the bag just disintegrated there. But surprisingly, the interior plastic was still pretty intact. And there, hanging on the lamppost for the backyard light, is the remnants of a swing that we had from a swing set. And so I just remember that was the only light in the back. And of course, it was mainly to be able to get to the storage room. But yeah, this is just kind of give you an idea of just how big this yard was. It was just one of those things. It was just so fun to have. I mean, we could just let loose back there and play. And, my mind, of course, growing up, if you know me by now, is all full of adventure. So it was nice to have all that extra room. And so we're just coming back to the back door. This was just a nice little moment I caught while I was filming. So you see the little birds there in the street. That's a pretty good representation of Premont. I mean, our old cat Fluffy, she used to also just kind of hang out there in the street and not have to worry about cars coming every so often. So I just thought this was a nice scene. And like I said, it's pretty representative of how peaceful things were most of the time in that town. My mom was very religious, so she always had stuff up on the walls like this. I believe this is from the Don Pedrito shrine that's in Falfurrias. But yeah, we always had stuff like this around the house, as you'll see as we continue. You see how long it's been up there, because you see there's already some moth-eaten parts to it. But again, just the little things I remember, the door here, of course, and how we had the everything covered there, and you can see where they peeled away a little spot so you could kind of peek through and see who was knocking at the door. Because like I said, this was what we used for the front door instead of the actual front door. This right here I had to stop and talk about for a second. So that's just a cutting board. But I remember that Dad had that cutting board forever. In fact, it even has a little corner that was melted, I remember, because he actually kept it too close to the grill. But yeah, again, that's the kind of thing, this is where my mind goes, just the little things that I remember. And so, great memories of that thing. Anytime we were barbecuing. As of making this video, I have our old pit, which was originally my Grandpa Yonel's. So hopefully that'll last as long as I can possibly help make it last. Mom was there helping me clean out the first few days of that week that I spent there cleaning. And we had to wear masks the entire time we were in the house just because it had been closed up for so long, and it had too many allergens and dust and things in there. And of course, I find it ironic now that, a year later, wearing masks would have a whole new meaning if you know your history. And ironically, I found this old children's book called Just a Mess, which I thought was very appropriate concerning that, or considering that's what we were dealing with that week. Here you see the living room, and so, this is pretty much the setup it's been the whole time we've had the house. Sometimes in the past, we've had a different couch along the wall instead of where it is there. So, this was... Sorry, I had to freeze frame it for a second. I mean, there's just so much to talk about. I mean, my mind as I'm seeing these shots is just spinning with so many stories. And this was this place was just a sanctuary for me growing up. And you look there. It's funny to say that kind of yellow hue that the light from the kitchen would create. That was just like very comforting for me. And hold on. Sorry, I'm just a very nostalgic person, and so this is kind of hard to do, but I want this video done for is the word posterity? I don't even know right now. Okay, I think I've composed myself enough to talk about this little chicken here on the wall. So that is literally stuffed with like HEB bags, which were super useful, as trash bags or whatever. And again, it's just all the little things here. Like if you look here, I mean, those plates were on the wall forever. I can't even remember where they were from. They could have been from my parents' Hawaii trip. Right here, it's funny to say, but that white microwave, again, who knows how old it is. Definitely not safe to turn on anymore at this point. But these were the things that were there for years, it felt like this whole place was just frozen in time. Even those items up there, the Texas thing and those two things on the side, I mean, God, those were there forever. When we first moved to this house that we're in New Braunfels now, I was able to rescue that gray TV, but it's stuck on one volume, so I don't know how much it's going to get used. But again, this entertainment center was there forever, all the little knickknacks in there. I don't know if I ended up with them, or not, but there were some little mariachi figurines that I loved that were always sitting there. You can probably find some old pictures in my keepsakes that show what this room was like in the early 2000s, and it's probably going to be pretty identical. But yeah, there's Dad's deer on the wall, his frame, and then here's the Last Supper that my mom had up. Like I said, we had a lot of religious stuff in the house. And here you can see the kitchen. So if you look to the left, you can see that makeshift stack of books that's holding up that piece over there. I actually ended up fixing it a little bit before I left, but I'm sure they had to completely replace it. Here's the old fridge and the oven. I know we had that stovetop replaced, but yeah, God, so many memories of just Mom cooking in there, and Dad, of course, and such a small kitchen, but so much good came out of it. And of course here again, another another religious piece, which I think my mom kept. There's a part of me that wishes I would have kept this, but at the time I didn't know that we were going to have a child, so I actually ended up donating this to the local Goodwill. So it's just a piece. I think it's from Fisher Price. I'm not sure. I remember it had a lot of little knights and stuff, but as far as memories of cool toys, this one was definitely up there. And I think we actually bought it later in life. But anyway, all the knights and stuff were gone, and it's basically just the castle. So I just felt like preserving the memory of it here. So I just decided to film all the little cool pieces. I mean, I've always loved toys in general, and I love when they get detailed like this. As you can see, some of the other toys that I had on my other channel. But yeah, I just hope that some kid, found this at Goodwill and hopefully got to enjoy it. So officially, this is the living room. But unfortunately, as you can see, it basically became a storage room, especially after they moved away. But that in the background there was the official front door. Again, things on the wall that have been there forever. Those pictures. Also these up here, I remember, I think they're some sort of Aztec pieces. There's supposed to be two of them, and the other one's missing on the wall. But here, oh yeah, I love this picture of us. I think my parents kept that, but I don't know. I just really love that picture. But my dad used to keep his record player in that same spot, and here again, just another Another picture that's been there forever. And yeah, just we'll move on to the hall now, it looks like. So as you go down the hall here, the first thing to the right is the hall closet. And it basically was like the storage for all my dad's hunting stuff. This is where the rifles were kept, and all the camouflage stuff and the ammo and whatnot. It's funny to think about now, because it definitely was not the safest, I guess, but we were taught how to respect it, so that's why I think it worked and we were safe. But yeah, you move further down here, you can see the mirror there at the end. I remember seeing Dad, stand there putting on his tie, getting ready for events at the school, and of course myself, and I think that's the doorbell at the top. So here's the bathroom, and unfortunately it became unusable there in the last years that we had it. Again, more stuff on the wall has been there forever. But I remember at some point they did have it remodeled. That's why they had all those cabinets added and whatnot. I can't even hardly remember what it looked like before, but the closet was always the same. Yeah, I just, not too much I can say about this, I guess. Yeah, a lot of this still, again, a lot of the same stuff's been on the wall forever. That's the window where we would actually come through sometimes if we got locked out of the house. And towards the end there, we had to use the tub to wash our hands because the sink didn't work anymore. Yeah, this poor house, I mean, I don't even know how old it was at that point. So this was my parents' room, which was directly across from ours. They had this big dresser. And this, I don't know if Mom saved it, but I always remember that picture of Jesus there on top. And you can see a lot of my dad's books there at the end. And of course now, it was covered with all kinds of stuff. But of course this wasn't there when we were growing up. But, here's their back window, which we would also use to get into the house sometimes if we got locked out. We would come through there. And if you're wondering about the foil, I assume it was to keep out the glare. That's Dad's nightstand. I remember him always laying down and reading. I mean, he loved to read, and he has more things on the wall that have been there forever. But he had his stack of books that he would go through, and he was definitely a speed reader. So he would go through novels quickly. And but this is just their closet. As you can see, they'd already taken all their clothes and whatnot because they'd already been moving around to different places by this time. And there's a good old Premont jacket, it looks like there. I still have mine. But yeah, just like, oh, look at that Premont thing there in the middle. I don't think I kept that. I might have. I'm not sure. I know I did keep some Premont memorabilia. And now we finally come to our room, and my God, could I pause the video and tell so many stories about this room. But for the most part, it's set up pretty similar to the way it was, us growing up. We both had beds, on either side. Mine's missing. That wall scroll, those toys up there, I preserved a lot of that stuff, so it should be here now. Yeah, all that stuff is definitely here. Again, all the curtains blacked out and stuff. There you see some of my friend Roy's artwork, which I know got saved. That closet that was overrun with stuff. Our little cabinet here. Oh, I was so heartbroken I could not preserve those posters. They were just they were stuck on that thing too long and wouldn't come off in one piece. Ah, yes, and here's Batman hanging from the ceiling. He had been there for years. I don't think I have him set up, but I definitely saved him. Now, this closet housed so many treasures that I know I saved a lot. You can see there the Nintendo box, the 64 box. I didn't keep, these piggy banks, those Donald and Mickey, which again, if I would have known we were going to have a child, I would have definitely kept those, but oh well, I mean, you just don't know the future. But yeah, I had this set up there for the longest time. Ooh, that GI Joe box was Grandpa's, or a gift to Grandpa that I ended up back with when he passed away. But I had all my stuff up here. You can see GI Joe, Ghostbusters, Star Wars, He-Man. I mean, that's the 80s right up there, and I ended up selling a lot of that to my friends. This right here, I didn't get a clear. I think it was from a birthday party that I had when I was little, that was Star Wars themed, that my mom kept these cutouts. So they were always in the back of the closet. This desk was positioned between both our beds, I remember, for the longest time. And I guess here I was just trying to give a sense of, what the room looks like behind. Man, just there's so many things, I can't even stop and talk about them all. And but yeah, there, man, I'm speechless. I really don't know what to talk about. Okay, I know what. I used to have this picture up on that closet that said, do not open. I wish that was still there. I remember there had like a Batman sticker on it, but I guess I was just going back here and trying to show more. Oh, there's the Dreamcast in the top right. Some more of what I found. Oh yeah. Babylon 5 was one of my favorite TV shows, and back when you could use a VCR to record stuff off a TV, that's when I made this collection. And apparently I went as far as typing up labels, and yeah, I personally didn't save them. I don't know if my parents did. Obviously, nowadays you can. Oh, hold on. I was just going to say that you could get them digitally now, which I'm sure I own them digitally. But anyway, this shirt was actually designed by my friend Roy when we were in college. We had a graphic design club, and yeah, I don't know that I saved this shirt or not. I think that's why I took a picture, because it might have been unsavable. But yeah, it's definitely some great memories, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, Roy and I have had a lot of projects that we worked on together. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I didn't save these shirts, but I took pictures because I just wanted to make sure that I at least preserve that much. But this particular shirt's just one of those that I just always remember that I had. From Area Marching Contest 1993, as you can see, and just always thought it was a cool design, and just something I wanted to preserve here. Oh man, now this right here was one of my favorites. It was this little toy laser gun. There at the tip, it's actually supposed to have like a traditional barrel, but it broke off. But I loved it so much I didn't want to throw it out after that. And it was just such a simple little thing. It had that strap you could put over your shoulder. You can see at the top of those two little missile things that you could pretend that you're loading, the laser. And oh man, I had so many fun adventures in my mind with this thing. I grew up watching Looney Tunes, so I remember these two pieces being up in the room. I can't remember where exactly they were. I think these were already taken down by the time I took pictures of them. But yeah, if you've never seen at this point, Roadrunner Coyote cartoons, you've got to look them up. Yes. So this one, I don't know if I kept or not. This one was a pretty special toy to me because basically, in 1987, there was a movie that came out starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover called Lethal Weapon. And Mel Gibson used, I believe it's a Beretta, I'm not sure. But he basically, I always imagined, using this as I, played, and always thought of his character from the movie. I even came up with this whole story of my own character, and, it was just one of those things. I just love this thing. I used to twirl it on my finger. I mean, just a great memory. I'm glad that it was, multicolored, because that was one of the things, to obviously denote that it was a toy, as compared to other stuff that used to look real, in the 80s. So anyway, this just held so much, memory for me. So this one was really cool because you could take that clip and put some darts in it, and you could put it in there and actually fire the darts. You would cock back the orange part there, and so this one was super fun to play with. Again, I don't know if I kept this one or not, but yeah, it was just it was a great toy. I think they might still make this model. I don't know. Might have seen it in toy stores, but yeah, this one's a lot of fun. So just wanted to show this blue bag here stuffed with some of the toys you've just seen, and several others. Again, I know I kept some of those in there, but this is just one of those things. It was always an adventure in my head, always something to play with, and you could throw this over your shoulder and we can go play anywhere in the house. Or I don't think we ever really took this stuff outside, which is probably why it lasted so long, honestly. So this I wanted to share because this is actually the back of one of the bulletins that came out at the Catholic Church, and it just has some of the businesses that we grew up with. If you look there at the top middle, there's Norwest Bank before it became Wells Fargo, and then later became another bank. To the right, you see Tejas School Supply, which is my friend Tessa. That's her parents that own that. You have the Knights of Columbus, which was we knew it as the KC Hall. Where there was dances and stuff, and some other ones there. I see Robert Aurora Schultz to the left. I believe she was a secretary at the school, if I'm not mistaken. On this part, you see there in the middle, Bertha's Beauty Salon. That salon was there forever. I don't even know how many years she had it. It had to be well over 50 or 60 years. In the middle, Hawaiian Ice. That's actually my friend Jesus's aunt, I believe, and that was set up near the Stop and Shop where we used to go and actually collect our comics early on and play video games there. Down to the left, Dr. Lozano, which was pretty much the only doctor in town. The Oasis restaurant, that's where I worked when I was in college, and my friend Yuma and his parents owned that. Now, this I kept for sure, with the intent to pass it down to our child. It's just something that I literally took to my grandma Belia's a lot, and it was just, it's just one of those things, I always took it, and it's a very sentimental piece to me, so I'm glad I could save it. And as you can see, for a while there, these were housed in there. I'm pretty sure I saved these just because these were too cool to throw away. But basically, these were from a laser tag set, which laser tag was a big deal in the 80s, especially these little home versions. We actually used to go play, if there was any laser tag arenas in the area, we would go play a lot. So just really cool designs. Now this one I know I kept for sure because I actually used it for a Halloween costume that same year that I rescued all this stuff from the house. The trigger was broken, the butt of the gun is missing, but it just, looked really cool, and they don't really make stuff like this anymore because it looked too real. I mean, it's obviously not, but, so yeah, it's just one of those pieces that I preserved. This one I'm pretty sure I kept as well. I think it still did work. This one actually reminded me, again, the year 1987, there was a movie called Robocop that came out, and I always thought that this resembled his gun a lot, and so, again, it was just fun to play with. This one, is all black, but it does have the orange tip to remind you that, no, it is in fact not real. Now, this poster was always at the back of the closet, and Snoopy was one of Mom's favorite characters, and I mean, I love the Peanuts gang as well. I always thought it was funny that this joke is obviously something negative, which I normally associated with the character Garfield, who is actually my favorite comic strip character. So this is just something that was in the back of the closet all the time, and I don't think I saved this one. Oh boy, here's where we get into one of those bittersweet memories. This was the homecoming mum that I had made, and as you can clearly see, It has my name and the name of my infamous high school sweetheart, Alma Sanchez. So I pretty much have no contact with her as an adult, so it's fine. But yeah, this is just one of those things, it is what it is. It happens. But, this was up in the closet forever and ever, and just a bittersweet memory, but a memory nonetheless. Most of these next ones I'm just going to let go at normal speed. These were just up in my room when I was little. I assume whenever my parents would go somewhere, these flags were popular to get, because a lot of these places, I was either too little and I don't remember going to them, or they were brought to me by family. Like this one, for example, I'm sure my uncle brought me this. But some like this, I have no idea what this basketball team is. But they used to be up in my room. This one we can stop for a second. As of making this video, we currently live in New Braunfels, so this wildlife ranch is not too far away from us. By the point of recording this, I still haven't visited it, but it is something we plan to go to eventually. But this just shows that it was there back then, and I do remember going to Natural Bridge Caverns for school trips and whatnot. So definitely a place I want to take our son one day. This one was from Houston. We went out there a lot because a lot of my dad's brothers and sisters lived out there. This one, I don't remember it at all anymore. Ciarama. I'd have to look that one up. Of course, the Alamo. We went to San Antonio a lot growing up, but there were like mini vacations headed out there. This one was actually a big church down in San Juan, Texas, that we used to go to a lot. That's definitely my parents when they went to Vegas. I didn't go till I was an adult. It's funny that there's a New Mexico one here, because that's another place I didn't go to and actually get to enjoy as an adult. Yes, I got to stop for this for a second. I have friends who will probably give me a lot of crap for just having this, but back then I was a fan because my dad was a fan. He's one of those lifelong fans, and it was always more enjoyable watching these games when I was watching it with him. And so this was one of the few times that, we got one of the banners when they actually won Super Bowls back then, because as of making this video, they have not really won much in the decades since. Here's another one. I have no idea, probably from my uncle. I feel like he always talked about going to Colorado a lot. There's Natural Bridge Caverns I mentioned earlier. So again, definitely one of the cooler places I went as a kid. This was a circus. It feels like nowadays circuses are dying out, so that's probably a rarity, but I didn't keep it. So nowadays, Six Flags Over Texas owns a lot more places. They bought up a lot more other parks. There's probably some rides on that flag that don't exist anymore. I see the water ride there off to the right. That's definitely one that we used to do a lot. And of course, when I was, smaller, we couldn't do the roller coasters yet. I didn't do a lot of those until I was older. SeaWorld's still around, and it's definitely one that we've done, just Sarah and I, and then we plan to take, our son eventually as well. I vaguely remember going to Sesame Street Live. That's one of those where all the people are in costumes. This one, I wonder, I feel like Mom might have made this one. I'm not sure. I loved Garfield as a kid. I mean, I still love him, but I don't follow him as much as an adult. I do have some collections of his, and he was just always such a great character. And if my movie and TV collection is still intact while you're listening to this, you'll definitely find plenty of Garfield cartoons there that I enjoyed as a kid. This last one is from Astroworld, which was a big park out there in Houston that we used to go all the time, again, because my dad had, brothers and sisters who lived out there, so we'd go visit, and Astroworld was something we'd always go to. Unfortunately, it was dead by the time I was an adult, and it's a shame because I have some great memories there. Hopefully one day I'll be able to dig up if we have any photos of any of what the park looks like, because at this point, it's pretty fuzzy in my memory what we got to ride. And like I said, there's a few staples like some of the water rides that we used to go to all the time. Now this one's got a pretty funny story behind it. So apparently we had a person in town named Mark Cisneros who ended up going into the military and got involved in this operation to capture Manuel Noriega, which, honestly, I'm not going to stop and take the time to look up the details of this person. I just remember it was a big deal, of course, being from the small town of Premont. We had a thing where we all were going to go meet him, and we were told to make these, posters for him. And so this is going to give you an idea of what a little kid's mind sees, whenever they tried to explain this to us, the importance of it. And so there you see Mark, leading Manuel, who's, got his cuffs on, and I just randomly put the jail there in the background. I think you can start seeing that my quirky humor here as a kid started pretty early on, because you see the spotlights on top of the prison. It says "Coming soon, Noriega." And then I think it's going to zoom in here in a second so we can see more. Yeah, thanks for locking up Noriega, Mark. Then my little U.S. helicopter there. I think it says we're waiting. But yeah, they're waiting to lock him up. And then Noriega says, "Hi, Mom," and Mark says, "Hi, Premont." So again, just my goofy little humor even as a kid. So here are some examples of the VHS tapes we had, which is how we were able to record so much stuff directly off of TV. I know it's probably hard to read there on the side, but I see the anime there, Outlaw Star. Obviously, you see the Transformers cartoon called Beast Wars, and then it looks like Beast Machines is there towards the other side. And then here, starting to the left, something, I don't know, it's just, I had some sort of a lesson recorded. Then Samurai Jack right after that. Then something called The Agency, and I see Futurama. It says PPG2, which I think means Powerpuff Girls. Then we have The Simpsons, Dungeons and Dragons. Not sure what that says. Something about the Discovery Channel, maybe. PlayStation recordings where we'd record ourselves playing the games. Crusade, which was the follow-up series to Babylon 5. And it looks like the Dune 2000 TV miniseries. Here it looks like we had more Beast Wars, Star Trek, probably the original series. Looks like I used to have Blue Seed on there. For some reason it's scratched out. More Dungeons and Dragons, more Crusade, and there at the end is Nirvana Unplugged, which is one of my all-time favorite bands and all-time favorite performances. I actually have that one on DVD now. This looks like it might have been my mom drawing this for a birthday party that I had. And this was actually what I mentioned earlier. On our closet doors, I had made these signs that said something like, keep out, danger, beware, something like that. And because I had seen it in some storybook, and I just thought it was funny because our closet always felt like it was about to burst to the brim with stuff. So anyway, I put this Batman sticker on there, and it's from the 1989 card series. And it's a shame I couldn't save it because, it's a great art piece of Batman. It's pretty definitive, but as you can see there, it's moth-eaten, and so unfortunately I couldn't save this one. I did save a few of the other cards, so you might be able to find that in some of my card collection. This keychain I got at Nickelodeon Studios when it still existed there in Florida when we went when I was a teenager, and I actually had this keychain on my truck that I first owned. And nothing says the 80s like my Michael Jackson Velcro wallet here. Also, we got this at SeaWorld, and I remember picking it up specifically at the gift shop. This I kept. It's actually from a He-Man Masters of the Universe toy set. This was actually the villain set, which is why you see Skeletor there. Because, of course, it was harder to find, He-Man's shield and sword. So this was the only one I could find as a kid. Now, these have an interesting story. My friend Roy and I had gone into this sword shop there at the Padre Staples Mall in Corpus when it was still called that. And this was actually a 3-tier sword set. And so we decided to split it. And Roy took the largest sword that goes at the top. And I took these two. And we kept them apart like that for years. I mean, it was probably a good at least 15 years that we kept them apart. And, they moved around with me to different places. And, he always had his displayed at his house. But when I cleaned out this time, I just figured it was time to let them all be reunited. So Roy actually has all three of them now. Now that we have our son, I do kind of regret getting rid of these. But again, I had no idea back then. So these were piggy banks that I had, and they actually were the type that had the plastic stopper at the bottom, so that way you could actually pop them open and get the change out. Well, I think Mickey did. I don't know, maybe Donald didn't. And that's always the thing that annoyed me about, most piggy banks, is that you can't open them without destroying them. So I think that was part of it, why I ended up getting rid of these. But it's a shame, because even now that he's little, our son loves Disney. This little TV ended up being Old Faithful for us, because I actually first used it. I remember specifically it was in New Year's Eve 1999 going into 2000, when we all thought we were going to die with Y2K. That we took this out to my grandparents' ranch, and because it has the antenna, so back then you could still receive TV signals like that. And so that's how we watched the New Year's ball drop there in New York. And so that was the first good memory we had with this TV. And then the second time was when me and my friend Mike moved to our first crappy apartment there in Kingsville for college. And we were trying to save money, so we didn't get a real TV or cable or anything like that. So this was our TV. We would at night, try to find what station was playing, what old sitcoms, and we would sit and watch. Like I remember watch Frasier and things like that. So this little TV did us well. So great memory. This was a book that I picked up somewhere that the main thing that always fascinated me, besides the fact that it was Superman, was the back here, where it showed that there was different kinds of kryptonite. Now you got to know that I grew up with the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman, and in there, it was only green kryptonite. And so this always fascinated me, the idea that there was others. And, it was a fun little book. I actually ended up giving this to my friend Carlton, because, he loves Superman just as much as I do. So it was just a nice gift to pass off. Some of my friends actually got some of the items that I unearthed. And but yeah, always this was just one of those little books that I've had ever since I was a kid. Now these, I honestly don't remember what I kept or didn't keep. These are, that's the Diddy Kong Racing, some Nintendo Power here with Battle Toads, Super Mario 3. I honestly don't remember what I kept and didn't keep, but Mega Man's one of my favorites there. I'm sure I kept that one. So I'll focus here on Mega Man for a bit, since he's my favorite. But yeah, we used to get Nintendo Power. I don't remember if we had a subscription or if we picked it up off the newsstand. But, back then with no internet, that was the way we kept up with all the latest news. And they would give strategy guides. And, if you know your old Nintendo games, a lot of them required strategy guides because they were purposely very hard. And so, again, I know I kept some of these, but not all of them. And I'm sure that pains some of y'all to hear that, because I'm sure these Nintendo Powers are sought after. But it was such a hectic week trying to get this done in 1 week. Unfortunately, I had to sacrifice a lot of stuff that I couldn't save. As we near the end here, I had to go outside, because there was always something about nighttime for me. I loved being up at night. I loved staying up late at night. The front door there that leads into the living room you saw earlier, that's where I would sit up and listen to music. And I turned the camera up for a second, hoping you could see the stars, but unfortunately you couldn't. I always told myself, especially being in a small town, the sky doesn't look the same anywhere else, because it's so clear and you can see the stars on a clear night. And anyway, again, the things that stand in my mind. No, there's the Jesus that my mom would always have there in the front. This hue, this color of the light. These are the things that I remember exactly right as you're walking in here. That image of how that looks right there, it just hits me. I love that. Coming home from like band practices and things like that. It was, yeah, it was something else. But here, as I finished off the night, on the other video, I could hear the click. Those are the little things I remember, at night. And yeah, this is when it was almost done. And yeah, just took one last look. I don't think I could accurately describe everything I wanted to in this video, but I hope you got a sense of it. But here at the end, I had to, of course, end dramatically.